Hello, good afternoon. We're just waiting for a few more attendees to join and then we'll kick off. Hello, if you're just joining, we're just waiting for a few more attendees to join and then we'll kick off shortly. If you're just joining us, we're just giving it another moment or so and then we will kick off. As you're joining as well, just a few reminders for this webinar. If you can take some time just to read through about how to work some of the things in the system and what we'll be doing. Perhaps as we're grouping as well, if you could test out your reactions, we'd love to see maybe a thumbs up emoji. And as we keep going, we're going to keep those emojis coming where you relate to content as well. We'd love to see those come through. So please do throw in a thumbs up or a smiley face. Great, thank you. Okay, with that, we can kick off. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Protiviti's Cyber Awareness Month webinar series, which tackles cyber vigilance, ensuring safety in the digital age. My name is Lauren Cave. I'm an Associate Director in our Digital Identity and Cyber team, and I'm facilitating this very exciting series of 5 webinars designed to enhance your understanding and awareness of some very topical and relatable areas of cyber risk. This is our 3rd webinar in our Cyber Awareness series, and I'd like to thank you all very much for joining me today to learn more about how to protect yourself, organisation and family in our increasingly digital world. We will be covering a range of topics in this series that are critical to maintaining cybersecurity both at work and at home. Our expert speakers will be sharing insights, best practices and practical tips that can be implemented immediately. Please do ask questions throughout the presentation using the Q&A feature. We will have a few minutes at the end of the session to address as many of these questions as possible. Last week, we covered the topic of protecting our aging population from cyber threats. And today's webinar is on keeping our customers' identities safe with fantastic speakers, Dusty Anderson and Belton Flinoy, who are both senior members of our Protiviti cybersecurity team. So with that, I will hand the floor over to Belton. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. And to start off, we felt it'd be really useful to articulate the key differences between enterprise or workforce identity access management and customer identity and access management. Now, while both enterprise identity and customer identity share common goals of securing access to resources and data, they do happen to cater to different user groups and have unique characteristics that I'll explain just a few of. On the enterprise identity side, that's something that many people are a little bit more familiar with, and that's traditionally with managing identities within an organization, such as employees, contractors, bots, and devices. It's primarily driven by security, regulatory compliance, automation, and cost savings, with many domains you might be familiar with, such as identity governance administration, privileged access management, authentication, and a few others. Customer identity, on the other hand, is all about managing our customers and partners and devices. A strong SIAM strategy is essential not just for security, but also enhancing our business value by enriching our customers' experiences. Its main focus really includes user registration, consent management, and customer data management. The scale of SIAM vastly outstrips identity due to its consumer-facing nature, typically dealing with millions and millions of identities. Understanding this distinction helps us to tailor strategies for each domain, leading to better managed identities. Now, before we continue, we want to do a poll, so get ready to answer a question. And the question that we want to ask you is, as you think of customer identity and customer trust, what key element comes to mind? Is it data privacy, identity validation, customer consent, or customer experience? What's the primary thing that comes to your mind out of these categories? And we'll just give you 60 seconds to respond. I see the answers coming in. Let me go to the next slide so we can see. Okay. It looks like data privacy and customer experiences are coming out at the top. Well, it's going to be really interesting because my counterpart Dusty is going to be covering some of the key challenges and benefits to that. But it's really interesting that everyone is articulating that. Over the past few years, consumer identity has been getting increased attention by a variety of key stakeholders, including the Chief Information Security Officer, the Chief Information Officer, digital teams, and of course, marketing. It's a dance between user experience and security. However, we do see SIAM as an opportunity to enhance your customer experience and build trust if done the right way. The domains here represent integral parts of a comprehensive SIAM strategy with the customer at the center. We recognize ownership of these areas is not always centralized, sometimes leading to challenges defining a robust and integrated strategy, something, again, Dusty's going to be talking about shortly. But if we look at identity validation, for example, that ensures we're interacting with legitimate users by verifying their identity claims during the registration process. A process can be light, such as setting up a Gmail account, or it can be much more robust, such as setting up a bank account. And again, that the team managing that process could differ from the team who's managing and overseeing access governance, for example. Access governance really deals with implementing appropriate controls to ensure that only authorized individuals are able to access data relevant to them. Again, that's something that's very important to the financial services industry or medical communities. Another key domain here is consent management, especially in light of things such as GDPR. It provides mechanisms for customers to control how their personal data is used, which corresponds directly with building digital trust through transparency. I can't tell you how many organizations that I've dealt with where I can't access my own information and it frustrates me. And again, that's what we're trying to help alleviate. It's not just about protecting data. It's about how are you focusing on that experience for your users. And while you read through the other domains like data protection or regulatory compliance, you need to remember that these are not standalone pillars. These need to be considered holistically when you're forming your SIAM strategy. And now that we've explained what SIAM is and some of the key elements, we really wanted to share some sobering stats that underline the importance of earning and maintaining digital trust in today's hyper-connected world. We know trust drives customer loyalty, leading to long-term customer relationships. In the same vein, the loss of trust can have severe repercussions, including damage to the brand, which could be unrepairable in some cases. We also have regular compliance areas, specifically from breaches that can lead to hefty penalties, such as GDPR, among others. And we know companies that prioritize trust differentiate themselves positively in the marketplace. They're able to command higher prices due to the increased perceived quality assurance driven by transparent data practices. These insights underscore why managing customer identities effectively is crucial in building enduring digital customer trust. We know it's not easy, and many organizations are using a variety of technology solutions, many times managed by a variety of different teams, to create and manage their disconnected user experience. We'll know more. And Dusty is here, I'm going to pass over to now, to talk about some of the challenges we see our clients facing in this area.
Thanks, Bolton. Yes, and I love the analogy of balancing the user experience and security as a dance. That couldn't be more true for many of the industries that we work with, though sometimes there is more science than art to some of this, depending on what type of industry you're in. It could be quite driven by some of the regulatory needs to ensure that you're securing your customer in appropriate ways. We work with many government agencies so that friction may be necessary to interact with. So certainly, depending on your industry, that balance can ebb and flow and truly become more of an art than a science, or vice versa. Also ensuring, as you mentioned, Milton, the compliance with these regulations as technology evolves, and that's where understanding the technology certainly is that third main key challenge. As technologies not only evolve of how our customers are able to interact with us, but the capabilities of our internal customer identity platforms today to meet those demands, meet those needs, certainly are ever evolving, ever changing. So to being able to understand what those capabilities are, as well as what your customer is demanding of you as an enterprise in order to meet their needs and facilitate that seamless experience that they're hoping for while keeping their data private and keeping their identity secure is really top of mind. So all of these things can be a little bit fluid, which is why we love these challenges and love to work personally with our customers, because no story, no journey is the same for every client. And even if you're in a similar industry, what your experience and target is for your customers. So a really unique landscape that we get to work in cybersecurity for us. As we think about then enhancing that ability to gain and maintain customer trust, what can this bring to the table for you as an enterprise? And certainly, I think the sobering statistics that Belton just shared kind of lean into some of these topics as well on this particular slide of customer loyalty retention. Being able to retain customers is always much easier and financially much more fiscally responsible to retain customers than go out and gain new ones. And so being able to maintain that trust is very vital in order to continue to grow and gain revenue in the market and maintain market share. When 68% of customers say that are concerned about their online privacy, and as our polling question showed, it's also top of mind here. I'm sure that's partly because all of us are consumers on this call in some form or fashion, as well as practitioners in this space. So certainly, I'm surprised that it's not a higher number of the statistic, but that is a top of mind concern for many of our customers. It also leads into what's the brand reputation, and if your brand suffers a breach, that's detrimental and really hard to recover from. So those negative experiences we know can not only damage the image permanently, but have financial repercussions as you think about regulatory compliance and what fines may cost you, not only in the fines themselves, but also then the loss of the reputation, how you may lose customers, or it may make it harder to gain net new ones as they research your brand and find information maybe that is now public and online about you, which certainly then flows into the competitive advantage. When you have a pristine brand reputation and are seen in the market, as Belton also alluded to, as one that has meeting the needs of the customers in privacy and security, and have very transparent data practices to assure your customers how you're managing their data day to day, and that you're doing the utmost to keep them private and secure, certainly that's going to lead to an additional competitive advantage for you in the market. Turn it back over to Belton to kind of share some of the different key regulations.
Thank you, Dusty. And I'm going to start off with referencing a book. There's this book called Range, and in it, it's talking about the future most successful people in business are going to be the generalists rather than the specialists. Now, I'm not going to agree or disagree with that concept, but what I do think is important is that we have teams better understanding the interconnectivity of both regulations and our processes within our organizations and how we need to come together in order to solve them. Gone are the days when we have a GDPR team, a consumer duty team, a DORA team, all working in their silos, trying to comply with their regulatory compliance. That worked 10 years ago. It does not work today. We need individuals sitting across the business, understanding the alignment of regulations, understanding their digital landscape, and understanding how technologies can support their controls compliance. I will state, technology cannot solve the problem alone. You need to define a good framework and then find technologies that can support alignment to that framework. And we just wanted to pull out 3 top regulations that we typically are encountering a lot in the UK and in Europe: GDPR, consumer duty, and DORA, and just kind of articulate some of the crossover between consumer identity and access management and these regulations. So looking at GDPR, it has requirements for consent management, increased security, ownership and control of data. Now, when we can put those policies in place and link them to our consumer identity controls, we're building a more comprehensive and structured organization. When you look at consumer duty, that regulation is really focused on delivering good outcomes for retail customers. However, it requires you to understand your customer. And if you have a disconnected customer data, if you are not capturing information that can help you make better decisions and inform your customers in a better way, you're missing a trick on how you can provide support to those customers. And then again, with DORA, what the interesting thing with DORA, or the Digital Operational Resilience Act, is it requires strict access controls from privileged accounts. It helps to automatically require incident response and reporting requirements. It proposes more stringent compliance reporting processes. All of these things help to secure customer data, customer information from falling into nefarious hands. Now, organizations that are able to understand how these linkages work are going to be on the leading edge of this. It's all about trying to take what others are trying to deal with and the challenges out there and turn that into your competitive advantage. Now, I'm going to pass back to Dusty, who's going to talk about our framework.
So as you think about kind of where your customer may start interacting with you, that may look different. And so certainly this is just a representation. Feel free to drop in our chat, maybe a different point of view. We're loving the interaction along the way here. So certainly you can drop in the chat if your customers interact maybe with a kiosk at first, or maybe they're still more traditional brick and mortar of how they come in and start kind of their online or digital interaction with you. But this is just, again, a general representation, not meant to be all inclusive. As we think about, though, many of them are using their devices, being a cell phone or laptop, to join or register with your company. Then begins the interaction with how well are we being able to validate that identity? Can we assure that it's a human identity? What are we doing to prove they are who they say they are? And then being able to manage their life cycle. So as a customer may join, onboard, register, whatever kind of language you assume, or if it's more of a B2B relationship, certainly this may look vastly different. There's no real registration process. Maybe it's more of a business to business relationship there. And so that registration process that we're speaking about might look and feel a little bit different. But as they're coming on, there's certainly a validation and profiling that gets done where the exchange of information begins of I'm telling you as a customer a little bit about myself so that I can engage and start gaining access to something about you, whether I'm shopping online or registering for a service, or setting up a new account to do business with you. Those updates then need to be able to be managed. So how well can I do self-service? As Belton mentioned around consent, that's probably first and foremost one of the boxes or pop-ups that you see is, do I consent to give you permission to utilize my information? And then begins maybe a delicate dance of that progressive profiling. What information as an enterprise do I really need to require of you in order to initiate that first maybe dance and conversation of who you are? Let me give you a little bit of then access into who we are versus do I need to know everything about you and how aggressive that profile needs to be in order to gain access into us as an enterprise. And then last but not least, such as GDPR, how well can I remove that access? Is it seamless? Is it secure? And protecting that. As well, we might think about your help desk support, additional account management. This is vastly different depending on what type of enterprise you are. Whether we can correlate the account down to a single identity and maybe provide some single sign-on services and authentication into our target systems and things, or is it that I need to, because of different brands that maybe my enterprise is maintaining, keep your accounts on purpose separate? So we certainly see that depending on the types of industries and your enterprise, whether it's appropriate to keep more of a seamless relationship or if keeping these accounts separate intentionally really does need to be done. And then how does that get maintained as you think about your authentication and access management, whether single sign-on really is necessary and I'm able to shop across brands with one login and credential management, or if I need to, based on brand reputation, have multiple logons, and because behind the scenes I'm not able to recognize this is supposed to be a collapsible enterprise, that each brand should be kept separate, my information kept separate, and my engagement then kept separate. So that single sign-on certainly depends on the credential relationship as well as the brand relationship. Then am I able to leverage multi-factor authentication? We're seeing many regulations come out where this is now necessary. It also then helps to be that validation step of I am who I say I am, and push notifications or push tokens or one-time passwords being able to be set there for a multi-factor, as well as device recognition. We're seeing a seamlessness in being able to create frictionless controls where I want to recognize you as a customer. I see that you want to do business with us from maybe your phone quite regularly. And so how can we make that more seamless to you if you're leveraging a device most commonly used versus if suddenly I get a new cell phone or I'm using a friend's cell phone to log in? That should be unknown, and understanding then the friction of an additional step-up authentication may be appropriate to protect and make sure that maybe no one's stolen your device to try and log into perhaps your bank account and things like that. So certainly, again, understanding the balance of the experience versus security and understanding your customer behaviors. So we see then as the framework evolves, not only does identity governance administration need to be a core part and functional aspect of your customer framework our customer identity framework, but how it integrates seamlessly with your access management solutions, how it's integrating into your directories, your customer directories, your target systems, maybe your customer relationship management solutions, and then also being able to integrate with the data security and governance platforms that you're leveraging. And then as you evolve, being able to potentially use even AI to better understand and analyze the customer data or serve your customers through bots that provide help desk support and things. All of these things, as we look at your framework, whether it be one holistic solution that you are already leveraging that's out there in market today, or if this is homegrown to you, I think all of these different aspects still should ring true. And this is certainly where you can be a little bit self-reflective right now and thinking about, if you are on a homegrown solution, how seamless and holistic is this capability for you today? How much automation are you able to glean from your current solution? Or are there certain aspects as you look across this framework that are quite manual and maybe a little clunky to walk your customer through? What does that handoff look like as you're thinking about just your overall customer journey, and kind of where are some of your pain points or struggles? Are you able to scale right now to support the customer as expeditiously as they would hope in their experience? Customers want it now. They want information at their fingertips. They don't want to wait. They don't like to see the circle of thinking and waiting for information to appear. They're looking for instant gratification, especially if they're in retail or interacting with you in finance. It makes us quite nervous when we're waiting for our bank account to come up. So as we think about what experience they're looking for, certainly then the seamlessness of your technology framework really needs to be top of mind, and the capabilities there and integrations need to be able to work seamlessly together. So we have another poll to engage you again. So just a brief reflection. Tell us a little bit about where you are on your customer identity journey as an enterprise. And you'll need to select, so make sure that you're making that selection on the screen. So are you at the start and just beginning to think about what your strategy may look like in your customer identity journey? Or maybe, as I mentioned, you're leveraging homegrown solutions. Are you starting to modernize and think about what platforms you can leverage in the cloud? Or are you thinking more of some new passwordless points of view and really taking advantage of some of the new identity validation software that is coming onto the market, and maybe even really maturing into that artificial intelligence world? Tell us a little bit. I see some answers coming in. We'll give you a few more seconds to respond. I'm going to wait and keep the suspense a little longer than Belton. I love a good suspense. I wish we had some maybe mystery music we could play for them. All right, I've seen about half of the audience. Give it a few more seconds. Let's maybe the rest of the audience taking a quick tea break. Come back, tell us. All right, drum roll. We'll switch and see what our responses are. Oh, wow. I love the variation. This is fantastic. So at least a quarter of you still at the start. That's fantastic. And starting to modernize, and wow, 33% are mature already in that enhancement journey. That's fantastic to know. Very exciting crowd that we're speaking to today. So regardless of where you are, just to kind of level set, and certainly we love to help you no matter where we're engaging with you along your journey of maybe, again, you're at the start, it's a little bit reactive and you're unclear of who's taking the reins, and there's not maybe a unified landscape of of that framework that we just shared with you. Or quite tactical. So you have some controls in place, but maybe it's not that holistic point of view, everything integrated and working well together. So still very tactical in nature. Starting to create that strong foundation and getting a clear accountability. You have the framework defined, but maybe not every technology is working as well as it could together. Certainly that's a very common aspect where we get engaged is we have a few of the areas covered, but it's just not enhanced and as seamless as we would like for it to be. I think a large portion of our audience is already in maybe this where we consider you strategic. There's accountability. You have a unified technology landscape, and maybe you're just kind of thinking about what's next for us as our customers' demands evolve and the technology stacks capabilities continue to grow, kind of what's next and where it can be more strategic and engaging with our customers, learning more about them to leverage maybe a different marketing strategy and thinking about then that the ability to partner as we thought about the slide that Belton shared in the very beginning of all the different aspects as we think about what circulates around our customer. How do we become more strategic with our partners internally that have a stake in the game of driving customer experience into revenue? And then obviously then finally maturing. How do we enhance and fully optimize the digital technologies, artificial intelligence, to really bring about the most optimal customer experience that's going to help our enterprise grow, gain market share, and continue on for years to come. Certainly, there are a lot of benefits, and we touched on this also in the very beginning of defining your customer strategy and continuing to evolve it. Unifying that your technology strategy and building out that holistic, not only picture, but then platform so that you are engaging with a fully integrated solution. It's not, creating any sort of unnecessary friction because of manual processes, whether it's a slowness in the experience or just being able to create that seamless, again, experience for your customers, unifying that experience then overall and enabling then a 360-degree view of the customer. As you think about the ability to audit and know who your customers are and understand and be able to pull quickly what their identities are interacting with, understanding their behaviors, or just simply being able to pull audit information out about your customer and what access they have. That 360-degree view and the importance of that means something different to each practitioner in your enterprise. And then also, as you understand who your customer is, it makes it easier to protect them and keep them secure, reducing the ability to have fraud, impersonation of your customers, and keeping them also then compliant with those key regulations and ever increasing regulation demands that we're seeing in the markets. Also, last but not least, but maybe even most important when you think about return on investment of a strong customer identity strategy and framework and technology, is the operational efficiency. Getting that time to value, not only internally where you're being efficient, you don't need to carry maybe a huge help desk support team because you've been able to create efficiencies. You're able to leverage AI to do some of the self-service and heavier lifting where you're reducing costs overall, but then also time to value for your customers so that maybe they interact even more with you and want to do more business, spend more revenue with you, or more money creating more revenue with you because of the efficiencies that you've created for them. So there's many, many, many benefits. And so certainly these are just key top of mind things to keep in mind. Last but not least, understanding that a successful customer program really has a few key considerations. I want to leave you with, think of this as a program, not a project. This is a journey not only for your customer and a relationship that you want to maintain over time, but it's also a journey and a program that will ever evolve for you. So this is not a point in time project, but something that you should be thinking about for years and years to come, what that's going to look like as your relationship evolves with your customers, and their demands are going to continue to evolve as well. Ensure appropriate collaboration. So as we talked about, again, back to that slide of many different aspects that support the customer, there are going to be key stakeholders then that need to have a seat at the table, should be thinking about a committee and making sure that you're being collaborative, that this is not just, again, a siloed project, but a collaboration that may have a seat at the table with security, privacy, digital experience, marketing teams, legal teams, sitting at the helm, thinking together about what that framework needs to look like and how it can support not only their internal needs to protect the organization from their frame of reference, but externally the brand reputation and how that's impacted. Last but not maybe least, not all changes will impact the customer experience directly. I hear this time and time again. We need to be sensitive to what our customers are experiencing when they're working with us. Not all changes behind the scenes will have an end user experience impact. And so being able to understand what impacts may happen and also communicate transparently if there is a customer impact or customer change certainly is important. But it can make a world of difference to make some changes behind the scenes that the customer may never even recognize, but it creates so much efficiency behind the scenes that you get cost savings and put your business in a better, maybe financial state as well. So certainly there's a lot of different ways that this can serve and support you. And with that, we're going to hand it back over to you, our audience, to join in for us with some Q&A from Belton and I. So certainly if you have not used the chat below, you have the opportunity to submit with us some questions, share some live feedback or thoughts. So take advantage of that. We'll give you a second if you've not already submitted some questions along the way to take a second and think about maybe what you would like to ask us. Lauren, I'm going to turn it back over to you to, I guess, begin the fun where this becomes quite more live.
Thanks, Dusty. And we had a few questions that had come in previously when we set up the series, so more broadly that have come in. So if we start maybe with the first question of how would an audit team begin to assess the maturity of SIAM within our organization?
Ooh, that one's very top of mind, as I just wrapped up an engagement where we were supporting a retailer, and it was not the customer identity team that came to us. It was actually the audit team that came to us and said, we have 3 main databases where we look at our customer information. One is represented by our marketing team. One is represented by our technology identity team, and one is our point of sale data. None of these databases match when it comes to customer counts. And so we are obviously quite concerned with that. We have some audit findings around customer identity, and so we recognize that there was no source of truth for their customer identity data that could be relied upon. And so there was many findings around that. We talked to them about being able to, on the back end, really correlate identity data, the importance of source of truth information. And what we recognized was, depending on where a customer registers, whether it's online or whether they're coming into the store, that registration process and the profile information was making it very hard to validate that customer was who they said they were. Their store was maybe just only getting a quick first name and last name because they didn't want to make anyone wait in line too long to ask for an email address or a cell phone number, or were concerned with privacy. And so it created quite an interesting conversation around that, but then also the frustration of being able to truly audit the number of customers and keep their identity private and keep the data secure was also creating quite a bit of heartache, because the loyalty then program was starting to correlate to the wrong customer. If my first and last name matched another customer, my loyalty points were going to the wrong person. And so there was all sorts of audit findings and issues. So certainly, as we coached them along, many of our findings led back to a better customer identity platform that could correlate the identities and come back to them with an emphatic, this person is the identity, being able to create a unique identifier that they could quickly ask, as well as a more frictionless experience from the store side. We did some coaching around how they could gain profile information or collect enough information to pull up the customer's existing account from their POS or point of sale information without it being cumbersome, and create a longer line experience for those customers waiting. So certainly there's a lot to unpack with that particular customer around audit findings and then into the customer experience.
Great. Thank you, Dusty. I think we've only got a few minutes left, but let's maybe think about a really quick answer to this one. There's a question in the chat. What should be the top priority for organizations when ensuring the security of their customers' identities?
Goodness, I think we've shared quite a few things as we think about that. And certainly, understanding how to authenticate and validate that customer is who they say they are is one of the key issues right now as we're thinking about fraud and risk, is being able to validate the identity, validate that it's a human identity, as more and more risk is coming through bot attacks and impersonation of customers as well. So I would say, first and foremost, the friction that is needed to validate and then authenticate those identities certainly is one of the things that, as a security practitioner in this space, that comes top of mind.
Great, thank you. And that brings us to the close of today's insightful session. I would like to thank our wonderful Protiviti speakers, Dusty Anderson and Belton Flanoy, for sharing their expertise and knowledge. To highlight a few key topics from this webinar, we've walked through the differences between enterprise and customer identity and access management. We've learned about the challenges with managing customer trust and what enhancing customer trust can lead to. And we've looked at where you're at in your customer trust journey. We hope you've found these insights informative and actionable. As mentioned earlier, this is the third of 5 webinar cyber awareness webinars that we're hosting. So please join us for next week's essential session on establishing a secure digital environment for your kids. That will be next Wednesday, 16th at 1 p.m. BST time. If you haven't already, please select the QR code on the screen to register for this webinar series. Should you have any further questions, we'll be sending out a follow-up email after this webinar, which you can respond to. Once again, thank you all for joining us today. Whether it's through implementing today's tips or sparking discussions with peers about cybersecurity awareness, your engagement makes a difference. I hope you're looking forward to next week's webinar. Goodbye for now.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.